So we begin our meeting. I begin by asking if you are willing to accept the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 6th of October. May I sign these as an accurate record? Thank you. I'll try and do that. Do we have any apologies for number 5? Yes.
Now, apologies here from Councillor Micklewright, possibly Councillor Patchett, who I believe had an accident, and also a telephone call from Councillor Frenchman to say that he was stuck in traffic. He tried to get here, that he may be late, or if it carries on like it is, it may be not at all. So I think we ought to make a record on that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Declaration of members' interest. You can declare them now or at the time if it affects any particular agenda item. That's disclosable interest. We come to Chairman's announcements. I've already had circulated a list of engagements. I just wanted to highlight one or two. We've had quite a busy November with a number of civic events and also an event organised in support of the Farming Community Network charity. That was very successful. We come to a busy time of the year. I was at a carol service last night. I did find time earlier today to pay a brief visit to Stamford-on-Avon to mark a special anniversary, but tomorrow I'm singing carols with the Mayor of Rushden. On Saturday I'm singing carols at Yavotov Marina, and on Sunday I'm in 3 places, not all simultaneously, so it's quite busy. Also draw your attention to a couple of forthcoming events. The Long Service Awards for staff will be held on the 15th of December, and I draw your attention to a charity concert organised for February the 24th. I promise you, you won't be disappointed if you buy a ticket. If you don't like concerts, buy a ticket anyway, you don't have to come. We move to questions under Council Procedures Rules 10 and 11. We have 2 questions from members of the public. Firstly, from Abby Arnold. Is she here?
Yes.
Would you like to read your question?
I did send them forward to you, monitoring officer.
Yes, we have them in front of us, but
okay.
You have the opportunity if you wish to read them.
I can, they're quite lengthy, so I'll apologise in advance. The first question, just to make you aware, I'm here as representative of the Long Property Hockey Club. Given recent acknowledgement that there are changes proposed to the Daventry Sports Park that will affect us. So the first question. Given that the final report of the Government Women in Sport Advisory Board states that whilst women's participation in sport has increased in the last decade, the gender gap remains concerning. Why has the decision been made to go ahead with a football pitch that will immediately serve predominantly a men's sport and remove a facility for over 100 ladies and girls involved in hockey at that facility?
I want you to read all 5.
Oh, you want to read all 5, okay. Second question. The government report for sporting...
Can you read the question as printed, please?
Oh, sorry. I might have written them down in the wrong order. Thank you. Given the proximity of the Daventry Town Football Club to Daventry Sports Park, why is this new pitch not being facilitated at the football ground where there is sufficient space to accommodate a 3D pitch and which also currently houses purpose-built facilities? How will the council justify acting directly against government policy? The government report for Sporting Future, an active nation, published in December 2015, states that the impact of fantastic new sports facilities that can only be used for a single sport is likely to be less than one that can cater to a wider range of people who want to play different sports. New sporting infrastructure needs to accommodate the maximum possible number of sports so that people have the broadest choice of how to be active. Question 4. How can a proposal for a replacement hockey facility be taken seriously that has no spectator toilets, no access to drinking water, no refreshments area, insufficient changing facilities, no halfway netting to separate pitches, no dugout seating and insufficient goals for split pitches? And question 5. How can you justify removing the only public facility in the Daventry district for hockey and any other sport looking to use an AstroTurf and turning it into a football-only specific venue when there is already provision for football in the Daventry district?
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to first of all thank Abby Harmore for her questions. It's great you've taken an interest in this matter and also researched some of the background you have done, so I appreciate that. I'd like to respond as follows, Mr. Chairman. There's 5 questions which I'll deal with as we go through the list. I think, first of all, I appreciate the concerns raised by Ms. Harmore, and which relate to the recommendations from strategy groups, so I appreciate that. Concerning the Daventry Sports Park, which we'll consider later tonight in the council meeting, the council values all sports and wherever possible will accommodate them all. We're very keen on that and always have been. I'll first of all address the issues raised and then turn to what I believe are positive approaches to the future for hockey. Abby's question, first of all, assumes that football is only played by men and boys. Well, of course, that's not the case anymore. It might have been when I was young, on the whole, but actually today, nothing could be further from the truth. Just to let you know, with almost 3 million active female players in the country, football is the biggest women's team sport in England. And enhancing the change facilities and pitch at the sports park will serve to increase opportunities for all. Currently, the Northants FA has 52 female youth teams and 32 adult female teams within Daventry as a district. So it just shows you the popularity of female women's football. Specifically, the western portion of the district contributes a disproportionately low amount of female provision. Previous investment in the district has focused on key clubs in the east, both Bolton and Crick, have demonstrated that investment into the female game can deliver large numbers of female teams, where adequate training and play provision can be provided. Based on the conversation with our key club partners, we are currently projecting the generation of 6 new female teams in the first 5 years of the project, with more to follow through the lifespan of the asset. So I want to also say, later on this evening, Councillor Hills, who's our portfolio holder, might want to expand more on the hockey. In relation to the second question you asked, it's not possible to convert the Daventry Town Football Club to a 3G under this project for 2 reasons. Firstly, it is on the lease to the owner, or former owner, of the club, and thus in private hands. Secondly, assuming Daventry Town Football Club continues, and I very much hope it does, then this would greatly limit the amount of community use which was possible, and thus mean the Football Foundation will not be willing to invest in the project. And we're always keen to get inward investment in Daventry, and this is why we're quite keen to take advantage of this offer. On the question 3, of course it's desirable for sports facilities to be multi-use where possible. However, around 95% of current usage of the existing pitch is for football, and the reasonable projections show that the conversion to 3G would increase the total amount of sport undertaken. That is both the government's aim and that of this council. The 4th question you asked lists facilities said to be lacking at Parker School, the alternative site for hockey, but many of these are not available either at all or only in a very limited ways at the sports park. The sports park does not currently have a dugout, for example. Moreover, everyone active are willing to donate the split nets, goals and seating to Parker to facilitate hockey use there. This question also touches on the future, which I'll come back to. And the final question repeats some of the issues previously raised. However, for completeness, I will explain that while there is a 3G provision within Daventry, there is a significant deficit to meet the demands of football within the district. Daventry is identified by the Football Foundation as a priority district for 3G investment based upon evidence demands of the population as a whole. The distribution of 3G sites in the district also makes it impractical for the grassroots clubs in the west to have access to the existing provision in the east. It's a large district, 257 square miles, it's a large area. So with these answers, I will turn to the future. Officers of this council and everyone active have a very positive dialogue with Parker School, which has stressed its desire to see more community sport played there. It is my intention that the council will work with the school, everyone active and other partners to explore how best to enhance the facilities of the school, the school has, and increase community use. This would definitely include hockey. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. We move on. We have a question from Aidan Ramsey of Coventry University Students' Union. I believe he's not here, is that correct? So I better read the question out. I'll try and make it as brief as I may. Daventry University Technical College was promised by the District Council to be a successful project of huge benefit to the young people of Daventry at a cost of over £10 million. However, it has not lived up to expectations, having a low intake for its first year and declining intakes ever since. I also note that students are underperforming, GCSE achievement at 8%. A final financial notice to improve has been set, and they are currently under the management of an educational advisor. How much money has the council invested into the UTC? Does the council have any current plan on how to better support the obviously struggling school and its students and staff? If the school were to be closed, what would happen with the building and its staff students? Who will be held accountable for the students that have been failed by this project? And how are the other secondary schools operating in terms of their capacity and student numbers? And was there really a need for a third school to be introduced? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chairman. 5 more questions. I'm very happy to answer these actually. And I'll come back later on today. The news that's broken today was in the public arena about the future of our UTC. So I'll come back to that towards the end of the response to this question or questions. I thank Mr. Ramsey for the questions, by the way. I think it's always helpful to have interest in these matters. So thank you to Mr. Ramsey. This council, as people know, has been very concerned for many years about the quality of secondary education in the western part of our district, which includes Daventry Town. It has therefore worked with partners to secure investment in potential solutions. And part of this approach was to take advantage of new government initiatives, such as University Technical Colleges, or UTCs as they're known, and we could all see the benefits of UTC as another arm of the, as part of the armoury, or the offer in Daventry of the overall education offer. The council provided the land at Ashby Road, Daventry, and a contribution of £210,000 towards the construction of the Daventry UTC. It is also holding £40,000 for the provision of pedestrian stroke cycle crossing off Eastern Way. As Mr. Ramsey notes, this secured over £10 million of inward investment into secondary education in Daventry. Turning to the second question, I should say that whilst the results of the UTC have not met expectations in terms of exam results, given the prior achievements of the pupils involved, it has made a worthwhile improvement in the lives of the young people it serves. And those students have been over to the UTC to see how, when it operates, how it's operating. A number of these students were poor performers made in their previous schools, and the actual benefit they've received has been tremendous. So I think sometimes we look at overall results, and one of the issues we had with the UTCs in a way was about the year 10 entry. So if you think about children in year 7 go to a secondary school, it's about the overall model. And clearly by the time year 10 comes around, a lot of those children are well established in school and will not want to move. But sometimes some of the pupils who will want to move maybe are the ones who aren't performing so well. So in a natural sort of way, a lot of those people end up in the UTC. And there has been major benefit actually for a number of those pupils in the UTC, because I don't know those who've been there, but it's fantastic facilities, and therefore they've actually benefited from them. And I have to say well done to the staff then who made that happen. So whilst they didn't meet the expectation in terms of the overall exam results, it is worth noting you can't compare like with like in many respects. However, the hard work by teachers at the UTC should be acknowledged, even in difficult times. And as we know today, the UTC is going to close at the end of this academic year, which I'll come back to at the end. Which again is disappointing news for people in Daventry, but hopefully there might be some positive news to follow. The council does not run schools or colleges, I have to make that point, Chairman, because we're not the education authority, even though we've always taken a very keen interest in our education division, because we recognise as a council with our growth agenda that the offer wasn't good enough. It hasn't been for many, many years. Some will say more than 30 years, actually. So we always wanted to improve that offer, and we've done lots of things which I could go on to, which I won't do now, Chairman, to bring new facilities into Daventry on the education front. And actually, I went to Northampton College AGM just recently, last week I think it was, and it's a wonderful, that college is really moving forward at the moment. And there's a new building, of course, in Daventry, the college building, which for those who haven't seen it yet should come along and see it. It's going to open on February the 7th, formally open on February the 7th. So what we've done is we sought to provide industrial contracts which are central to UK ethos. That's the point about UTCs. It's about working with local companies to actually get pupils trained up and ready for jobs in those industries as they move out of the UTC into the real world. As the school's now closed, it isn't our decision, by the way, it's the EFA, Education Funding Agency, working with Northampton County Council, who have the duty to actually fill these places at the college. And of course, as we know, the number of students go to UTC didn't match the original proposed numbers. So the key thing for us has always been, Chairman, we always knew there's a potential in recent times of the threat of closure, that obviously our main focus is on the students who are actually at the UTC, to make sure whatever happens next, and that will now definitely be the case with the news today, we have to make sure those students are well looked after, wherever they go next, and there's been a number of options going forward on that basis, which I don't want to go into detail yet, Chairman. I just want to say, as far as the land and buildings are concerned, both are owned freehold by this council, under a 125-year lease to the UTC Trust. This obviously could be transferred to another UTC under the terms of the lease, but however it would have to be required for the education use, and therefore could be used for another school. And when I say another school, Chairman, I'm not suggesting a brand new school, I'm saying maybe an arm of the school that's there already and well established, who have a good reputation and a good name, who could potentially come into Daventry to help raise the bar for Daventry education as a general rule. I'm not talking about grammar schools, just in case people think that's one where I'm going. I'm not against grammar schools, I'm not suggesting grammar schools there. I would not agree that students have been failed by the UTC. As I said before, Chairman, I think a number of students who've gone there have actually done better by going to the UTC than they would have done had they stayed in mainstream schooling. As I previously mentioned, the school has helped pupils with typically poor attainment to make real progress. As the UTC has now closed, it will be a result of being unable to sustain the costs against the number of students, because every student attracts a sum of money. Not because individual students have been poorly served, and therefore anyone who says that really doesn't understand what's going on there. And I'm not suggesting they would do necessarily, Chairman, on the outside. Now, in terms of school numbers, according to the January 2016 school census, Daventry had 805 secondary students, Parker had 681, and the UTC had 147. The respective capacities are for Daventry 1190, for Parker 1210, and the UTC, of course, was 600. Therefore, numerically, there's no need for another secondary school. However, what there is a need for, and I'll make no apology for promoting it, is a step change in the attractiveness of the offer in Daventry of secondary education. And that's something we've been pushing hard for a number of years, even though we're not the authority responsible for education provision. And of course, as we know now, the county council only has 2 secondary schools in the whole of the county under their control. All the rest are actually academies. So what we're going to do as a council will work to that end. We're still going to continue to push hard to ensure the offer in Daventry is better than it has been for many, many years. All I can say now, I had a phone call last Friday from the DFE about this decision to close the UTC, which in many respects was very, very disappointing, and it wasn't unexpected in some respects. But I have to say, this is also an opportunity, so it's very disappointing on one side. We have a wonderful building there in Daventry, and the last thing we want to see is that building to remain empty. And I know that work's been going on behind the scenes to actually get another provider into Daventry to help raise the standards in Daventry. And I think the key point here is, unfortunately, on this occasion, and the DFE did apologise for this, they weren't able to announce the closure of the UTC at the same time as explaining what's going to happen next with this particular building. And that will come out hopefully in due course, Chairman. I'm aware there's definitely a player in there, and they're putting an application, and this particular education facility will actually be a good name if it comes into Daventry, be a very good name. But obviously, as I can't actually say what the name is, Chairman, and I have said already it's not a grammar school, just to get that right. So I just want to make sure that it's a good school with very good attainment, and I hope that will help to raise the bar overall in the years ahead. I think we've seen already about the numbers, that obviously clearly, and one of the reasons for those numbers being low below capacity, of course, is because parents send their children elsewhere. And why wouldn't they? When you look at the performance over many years of some of the schools, I'm not looking at schools now, I think really good efforts have been made now to address that, and we've seen that in the recent exam results, Chairman. But this is a long-term problem, it's not just suddenly occurred. So therefore I think, we're going to see, we have an opportunity here to really drive forward the education standards in Daventry on the back of our growth. We have, as we know, 4,000 new homes being coming into Daventry in the long run, on what we call the north-north-east sewer of Daventry. And there's a school actually planned for that side. So I think what will happen as we move forward is the numbers of schools in Daventry, the numbers will be decided on how many we need, and where those schools will be or are or will be in the future will be decided at that time. So it's a long answer, but the question is a very pertinent one, because obviously the needs come out today, and I thank Mr. Ramsey for that. But I think the key thing here is we've got to be positive about the future of education. We held a press briefing in this council chamber, not this council chamber, this council a few weeks ago, where we led it for all the education providers in Daventry, because some of them were very concerned about the press they were getting. Often, all the good stuff that goes on doesn't always come out in the press. So we had a very positive meeting. Some of the stuff since then has come out in the press. The press are aware of all the good announcements coming out in the weeks ahead, and I hope they will cover it, both radio and newspaper, to show people in Daventry the good stuff that's going on. Because sometimes headlines can be misleading, Jen. You get a bit of bad news and everyone thinks the whole lot's bad. It's not bad at all. A lot of improvements have been made, but we've still got a way to go. And I think whilst this bad news today about the UTC isn't good news, there's really opportunities ahead which can make it even better news down the line. And I, for one, as this administration has for many years, since 2003 to be precise, have been advocating the need to improve the education offered in Daventry. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. We move to questions from members of the council. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. My question concerns the Council's voluntary and community sector capital grant scheme, and the need for the Council to be able to take responsibility for decisions and applications for grants. The Council's policy statement of April 2014 on discretionary grant funding for voluntary and community organisations states that the Community Development Officer will make recommendations on applications for capital grants to the Chief Executive. Applications to the Chief Executive. Beg your pardon, just reading my own writing here. Recommendations and applications for capital grants to the Chief Executive for a decision following consultation with senior management and other relevant officers as appropriate. There's other for applications that are under 3,000, which will be referred to the Council Grant Panel for decision. Officers may do wonderful work for us, and they no doubt do it with integrity. But decisions on grants will often be sensitive and even political, even if not in party terms. It therefore seems wrong that officers, rather than elected members, should be required to take responsibility for and be exposed to criticisms of decisions that they have made in good faith. Now, my concern arises from a recent decision to award £15,000 to the Banbury Sailing Club. Family membership of the club is £180 a year, and that only includes children under 18. Those aged 18 to 24 must pay £100 a year. And for both these categories of membership, there is a £50 joining fee. Then, of course, there is the cost of having a boat. However, I should also add that at the sailing club, there are also costs of parking your boat at the reservoir. Now, while I welcome opportunities for people learning to sail, membership of this club is clearly only affordable to the better off. Moreover, although the club's premises are in Daventry district, they are right on the edge of the district. The boundary bisects the reservoir in which they sail. And the club is used by people from Oxfordshire and Warwickshire, as well as from our own district. Many will therefore question whether it is right that Daventry's council taxpayers, many of whom face economic hardships, should be contributing to the leisure activities of relatively affluent people, many of whom do not even live in the district. Would the leader of the council agree that a structure is needed to ensure that such decisions are overseen by elected members who can then take full responsibility for them? I suggest a small committee for this purpose, although a procedure whereby officers' recommendations and grants must be ratified by the strategy may be an alternative option. I would also be grateful if the leader of the council would inform us of the membership of the Councillor Grant Panel, when it was appointed and by whom. The Councillor Grant Panel being the panel that is referred to in the Council's policy statement of April 2014.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Ritchie for his long question. There's one question in a way, but it's a number of parts of that question. So thank you for that. This is interesting, actually. I want to first off by saying the answer to Councillor Ritchie's basic question is actually answered himself. Yeah, I quote, decisions on grants will often be sensitive and even political. Now, one of the reasons, when you have a big majority in any council, there's always a danger that that administration, if it so wish, could take decisions purely for their own wards, purely for their own, to not be very fair, should we say, not necessarily be fair across the board. So what we've done as this council, we've always been fair to the opposition, it's a minority opposition. We always try to be fair about how we distributed our funds. So we did set up a policy, a process, which made sure that we had an objective view about how grants were distributed. And I think that's important, because obviously if it's just purely administration with a big majority, we could set up a panel, a member panel, with a majority on it, and we could put through every grant we want and not disregard others. And one way is to avoid that, to not allow that political interference in the first place. So therefore we set up a framework in which case the officers then work to that framework, and the decisions are taken within the framework which we agree, as a council agreed, and that way we felt was a far fairer way of doing it. So therefore the best way we've seen to have objectively decided grants, to worthy causes of course, is to take the politics out of it, party or not. And politics comes in many forms, by the way, and you have local politics as well as party politics. So members set out the policy basis for the grants and the criteria to be operated, which we have done as a council as a whole. It is appropriate that officers then carry out the operation of the grants based upon that framework. Just as with other matters, that's what we do. We set the policy, the officers actually enact the policy. And therefore, what we always want as administration is to be fair about the distribution of grants. So we don't favour our own wards, we actually look at it in a whole picture of the whole district, all 257 square miles, and presumably that's what Councillor Rich would also want it to be fair, assessment of grant applications, so why can't officers do it? The point of saying is, the officers, we set the policy, the officers enact that policy in a fair, balanced way. I find it interesting that you mentioned Boundary Sailing Club. I don't know why Paul Boundary Sailing Club are in the frame here, but I just want to make the point here. It does a massive Boundary Sailing Club on the edge of our district, because near Market Harbour we have areas there right near the edge of Leicestershire, Rugby side, Northampton side, Kettering side on the other side. So parts of our district border on to all these different areas. So are you to say that we should ignore those parts because actually they're close to Kettering or close to Northampton or close to Rugby? That argument doesn't stand up in my view, Chairman. However, I want to focus on Boundary Sailing Club because I think it's very important when you put things out in the public arena that you get the facts right. And I think this is why it's important. So the facts are there's a £100 to £180 annual membership fee, compares very favourably, because you mentioned the fee, not me. A local private sailing club, Draco Water, sets much higher fees, £427 per year for a family and £317 for an individual per annum, and would not be eligible for our grant funding. A good quality pre-owned boat can be purchased for a modest £150. And the club has, this club you mentioned has more than 20 club boats available for new members and starters. Boundary Sailing Club is a not-for-profit organisation and a registered community amateur sports club run entirely by volunteers. It provides community activities to maintain this status. They will not be eligible for Sport England funding where it's not the case. It provides annual taster sessions for scouts, cubs, guides, brownies, rainbows, local schools and local youth clubs. In addition, their open days typically see about 150 members of the public, both adults and children, involved in their taster sessions. So it's a really good community club. So why wouldn't we be looking at it as an option that they want to have grant funding? Why wouldn't we look at it? You know, it seems to me very fair and balanced. That club should not be treated any differently to any other club in our whole district, whichever board they're near, as long as they fit the criteria and the framework we set as councillors. So with regard to the councillor panel now, that was set up in 2010 to administer £15,000 of annual second homes funding paid to Daventry District Council by NCC. It was agreed by the leaders. The 3 member service was agreed by the leaders. So again, that was set up, and the 3 current members, which you asked for, are Councillor Anna Hills, Councillor Barry Frenchman, and Councillor Cecile Ernie-Swift. So they're the 3 members. So really the point I'm making here is, if you're going to highlight a case like Daventry Sailing Club, I just say to Mr. Richard, be very careful that you're not being seen to be targeting them for spurious reasons, when I say to Chairman, because it is spurious reasons. Because actually, when you look at the criteria in depth, you then realise they're much a part of our district, as I've been worked by in the north, as Barbie in the west, west, that's right, as Moulton in the east, and I think it's very important that, you know, and Daventry Town obviously is the centre of a lot of stuff, but, you know, we have this wide district, and therefore it's very, very important we treat everyone equally, Chairman. Thank you much indeed.
Thank you, Chairman. There is no discussion of questions.
I'm sorry, Chair, there is, in the case of questions from councillors, there is the option for a follow-up question. The provision for that is in the standing orders, if you're in your constitution.
Carry on, please.
I'm grateful to the Leader of the Council for answering an awful lot of questions that I didn't actually ask. But can I just ask that from what Councillor Miller has said, that Councillor Miller is quite content with the criteria that are used by this scheme that have led to 15,000 being given to this particular club, and does he actually think that that, in terms of other priorities, in terms of other needs across the district, is that something that he is happy to defend?
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Hey. Thank you. Right, we'll move on. Item 7, reports of committees. To receive for information purposes only the minutes of the undermentioned committees. I won't read the list. Does that receive the assent of the meeting? Thank you. We move on to the recommendations of committees. Turn to page 79 of your papers, please, and we'll work through these in order. First is from Strategy Group, 13th of October, Ageing Well in Daventry District. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, you'll probably recall that at the Strategy Group meeting held on the 13th of October, I put forward the recommendation that the Ageing Well strategy for 2017 to 2021 be adopted by Council. I am now asking for endorsement of that by full council. The draft strategy had previously been well discussed. 27 stakeholders were actively engaged. The consultation itself was held over a 6-week period, and I was absolutely delighted that Daventry District Forum, which was formerly Daventry Over 50s Forum, played a major role, because myself and Tim Campbell were very heavily engaged in getting that off the ground many, many years ago. The report outlines really what is currently being done, what's needed in the future, and I believe it's a very, very comprehensive strategy. Comments were made at the strategy, and these were taken on board, and I know in some cases our officers did reply to some of those questions that were made, which is quite right, they should do so. This is something a lot of us must aspire to age well in the future. Not just now, but to age well in the future. And I ask for your endorsement on this, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a second to that? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. Only quickly from me, actually, if if Councillor Earls is an embodiment of AG1, then I think we should all get behind this one, and I certainly say it.
Keep taking the challenge.
Thank you. Any other comments? Can I then put that to the meeting? Agreed. Thank you very much. We move on. Housing Implementation Strategy. Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The housing implementation strategy is a national planning policy framework requirement. It's not a development plan, but it is an action plan. It sets out how we are to achieve our housing requirements over the lifetime of our plan, up to 2029. We did go out to consultation, and a number of changes were made. Now, Daventry district, for planning purposes, is divided into two. As a generalisation, that's Daventry district excluding the Northampton-related development area, and the Northampton-related development area in itself. As far as Daventry district is concerned, we do have a 5-year land supply. And going on through the plan, certainly to 2020, there are going to be no problems in maintaining that. And hopefully, when the Part 2 plan comes on, that'll take us to 2029, we should get some housing from that too, albeit in a smaller way. As far as the NRDA is concerned, there is likely to be a shortfall. We do consult with Northampton Borough Council over it, and we are also asking them and the other authorities which are joining us, which is South Northants, Welling Borough, and Northampton itself, to adopt a similar housing implementation strategy to ourselves. So the recommendation that I'm putting to you this evening, and I'll read it out, that the proposed changes to the housing implementation strategy in response to responses set out in Appendix A be approved, that factual information about the need for gypsies, travellers and travelling show people be replaced with revised information from the latest assessment of need, which is ongoing. That further minor editorial changes be made to the housing implementation strategy to reflect the fact that the document will be in its final adopted form, and that the revised housing implementation strategy be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Poole, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other contributions? I see none. Can I therefore ask the meeting's assent to the recommendation? Agreed. Thank you very much. We move on. Changes to neighbourhood development planning approvals. Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to like this one, but my contribution will be great. Yes. Basically, what government has done is introduce a new process of timetables for determining neighbourhood area applications, for designating neighbourhood area applications and determining neighbourhood policy, neighbourhood forums. It's a hierarchy of decision making. It's very difficult to understand when it's read out, but I'll have to do so. It's something which we probably will never have to use when we deal with neighbourhood development areas. We adhere strictly to the timetable and we get them through in accordance with the timetable already set. So it's not going to be a problem to us, hopefully. But of course, you have to bear in mind that going through the process we do, reporting to strategy committee and then reporting to full council, sometimes there will be holiday periods intervening, like one coming up, Christmas, or there may be other reasons which make it difficult to adhere to a timetable. In that case, there is a default mechanism which government has set out for us, which provides that the decision-making process can be delegated. In the case of neighbourhood development areas, designating those could be designated to the business, and so on. So I'll read the recommendation to you. Warning you now, it's not very nice. Recommend that in response to the government's requirement that applications for neighbourhood areas be approved where they relate to a whole parish, the business manager is delegated the power to so designate. 2. That in response to the government's decision on the process for determining neighbourhood forum applications, the following will apply. A. Council will continue to determine applications following initial consideration of strategy group where the timescale required by the regulations permits. This and 1 does not apply. So 1 does not apply. B. Strategy group is delegated the function of determining applications where the timescale required by the regulations permits. This and 1 do not apply. C. The business manager is delegated the function of determining applications when 1, 2A and 2B do not apply. 3. That in response to the government's imposition of time limits for making the decision on examiners' recommendations, where agreement cannot be reached on a date with the parish council concerned, the following arrangements will apply. A. Council will continue to make the decision on a neighbourhood development plan or order following initial consideration at strategy group, where the timescale required by the regulations permits this. B. Strategy group is delegated the function of the decision on the neighbourhood development plan or order, where the timescale required by the regulations permits this, and 3A does not apply. C. An extraordinary meeting of the Council's strategy group is held to make a decision where the timescale required by the regulations permits this, and 3A and B do not apply. D. The business manager, in consultation with the strategic planning portfolio holder, is delegated the function of making a decision on a neighbourhood development plan or order when 3A, B and C do not apply. So the hierarchy of decision making, in most cases, doesn't apply because it goes through strategy and full council as it has done before. But where that's not possible, there is this hierarchy of decision making which goes at the top from the business manager right down to at the bottom step, which would involve myself and the business manager. Now, if you can understand all that in the first group, well done.
Thank you. We probably read several times.
Yes, I might like to add that I think we've now got 23 designated neighbourhoods, and 7 of which have gone fully through the process, including Richmond and Malta. So we've done extremely well in this district, and we have conformed to the timetable set.
Thank you, Councillor James. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Osborne, do you wish to speak? No. Does anybody wish to speak? No. Can I have the assent of the meeting? Right, we move on to Strategy Group 24th November. Daventry calling review, Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Chair. I believe that any form of communication that we can give to our residents is very important. Daventry Calling highlights a number of useful contact details within our district which can assist the neediest of our residents, such as our Northamptonshire Police, the Job Centre Plus, Government Services, Romford Housing Association, Future Housing Group, not forgetting our great credit union. Also in this edition, it explains to our residents that all the waste recycling over the Christmas period and what to do to assist them. We are talking here about a 16-page A4 colour application delivered to 78 villages within our district. That reaches 34,000 households, which means 79,000 of our residents get it. The cost of this magazine, its production and its delivery, and for allowing of the budget growth, is less than 23 pence per copy. I hope here tonight that everybody will support the recommendations, which are: 1. The Daventry Calling magazine continues to be published in the print format and via the Council's website 4 times a year, for 2017 and 18, and to be reviewed in 3 years' time. 2. That the growth bid of £6,000 to cover the distribution cost is approved for 2017 and 18. Thank you, Chair. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to second this recommendation. Actually, I'd also like to congratulate Councillor Howard and the officer team for supporting him on this communication. As I've already said, it goes out to 79,000 people at the cost of only 23 pence per copy, and I think it offers remarkable value and information for our residents across the district, and it should be congratulated. We should sustain this, and even though often we're in an age of social media, etc., I think it's a very trusted publication, and we should all get behind it and support it. It has my full support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Irving Swift.
Thank you, Chairman. In my division, in my ward, we had some various problems with the distribution, and I know that has been taken into account, and it was as a surprise because everything was in place for the distribution. Can I be sure that next time we have a process in place that it doesn't happen again? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you, Chair. About a year ago, I took a straw poll of all my parish councils at their annual general meetings, which are, they see the village's attendees, and I asked all of them what did they feel was the value of Daventry Calling and would they like to see it continue, and not one parish council wanted to see it go. They really do support the Daventry Calling, as do I as a portfolio holder, because I use that as a vehicle, a communication tool, because we have a lot of information to get out there into the public arena on waste. So I very much support its publication. And just to finish, I also have a few copies in my surgery, in my day job, that we publish there for patients to read. And I wondered if there's any other avenues where it's circulated, because it is a good avenue to communicate.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. 4 times a year, you'll all know that I'm against 4 times a year. The actual cost of the magazine with the new increase will be 37,000 just over to this council. I also do a straw poll and ask people what they think of the magazine, and it proves here just with the people that actually responded to the consultation, and out of all those thousands, only 85 people did respond, and of that, a quarter of them said that they read less than a quarter of the magazine. I've always felt that 3 times a year was more than ample. All that information about the police and everything else could be put in there. I would much rather see that extra bit of money be spent going out to the public and delivering when the new bin proposal came about. I think that actually you should have been out there, out and about, publicly in shopping supermarkets, because so many people I'm still getting emails to say they don't know what's going on. So even though they have the magazine, you say it falls through the letterbox and they should read it, they don't read it. So I think there's still other venues of getting information out. So I would be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm all for communication, I think we've got to recognise that communication is something that happens in two directions. And we've got to look for mechanisms in which we feel that we are really connecting with the people that we want to reach and that we want to provide information to, that we want to empower with the information that we give them. If this is such a good thing, why are we simply moving from doing it every 4 months to every 3 months? Why not go for every 2 months? Why not produce more of them? Now, I'm not making that as a proposal, but I just want to challenge how are you actually going to evaluate what the increase, the increased benefit is by putting out more issues of Daventry calling. We've heard, yes, that it is good value at 23 pence per copy delivered. If it's good value, if you give people a huge bargain by saying that you're only going to charge them 10 pence for it, how many people do you think would actually take it? The survey that has been done, I regard as rather meaningless. If you have got a free newsletter, anything that is sent out free as a booklet or anything else, if you really want to evaluate it, you have got to start questioning, not simply, give people the option of writing back and saying that yes, I got it and it was okay. You've actually got to do something that is much more in depth, something that has got a much more valid statistical base to actually check. Well, are you actually checking? You're not just getting the response from those who might go to parish council meetings who have got an actual interest in what the district is doing. Of course, they are going to look at it. For the vast majority of people who receive this, I suspect that they receive it and hopefully it goes into the recycling box, but it certainly isn't going to be studied. If you want to find out what this magazine, this newsletter is actually doing, I think that you need to start with a completely different approach. Ask people what they thought of the article that was on the second page or something like that. Something that actually tests, did we actually look at this? Or are they just responding in the way that they think that it would be, it's free, so why bother complaining about it?
Thank you. Councillor Poole next.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We can all go down the road of polls, parish polls, whatever polls. You can't lead a horse to the water, the proverb goes. However, I think I'd like to thank Councillor Ritchie, and I quote his leaflet: "As you may know, DDC have decided to reduce the black bin." Well, clearly, his statement to his constituents, as you may know, it suggests to me that Councillor Ritchie has acknowledged the fact that people do actually know about the black bins, so therefore the message has been getting out. I'll repeat what I said at strategy. We talk about online. Well, it's a shame that Councillor Frenchman is not here, because he went down the road of a task panel, etc. And you'd be surprised the number of villages that can't get a mobile phone signal. However, what they do get 4 times a year are contact details and messages from this council, just to let them know who we are, where we are. I do agree, poor response, it's something that we've all had to live with for many, many years. It's not going to change. The cost of knocking on everybody's door, what did you think of paragraph 4, subsection 5, will cost a darn sight more than the publication itself? But I will leave the portfolio holder, if I may, Chairman, to highlight just how many hits, etc., etc. In particular, the waste project or the changing of the waste received. Also, the number of hits that the new plans for the town council, which was covering my portfolio, the number of people that actually saw red on that. So, in all, I think we do a damn good job. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Mr. Stewart, do you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to correct a couple of factual points. Firstly, Councillor Randall referred to a cost of £37,000. The actual cost, including the growth figure approved, will be £31,000. And the second point by Councillor Ritchie, the Daventry calling is distributed quarterly at the moment. The proposal isn't to increase the number of editions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Tony Tillage just actually corrected 2 points I was going to make to Councillor Ritchie. It's interesting actually, Councillor Ritchie's question to me earlier, Chairman, suggested that he knows best and that he decides which grants go where. And I said we have a very fair process actually, where even the leader here doesn't decide where grants go. He decided that Banbury Sailing Club maybe wasn't worthy of the grant it received. We have a process in place where individual members recording.
Happy Christmas.
Carry on.
Tiny intervention, Chairman. I was just pointing out the fact that Councillor Richard gave the appearance that he was actually suggesting that Banbury Sailing Club is not worthy of the grant it got. The point I'm making there is that that's his individual view, and I have no problem with that's his individual view. I may have a view individually. The whole point about the process is the council, the process we set up, is to try and ensure fairness. And on this particular issue about Daventry calling, whilst someone said only 85 people responded, in my experience, Chairman, if there's an issue that's really getting to people, a lot of people respond. And therefore, if this was really controversial across the whole district, I think we see a lot more responses than 85. And I think on the whole, and as I said, some of those people weren't happy, some were, on those responses. So I don't think we should get carried away. And one thing I would say to you, I know Mr. Councillor Richards is a very man of detail, and I'm sure Councillor Richards reads his emails. One thing I notice in emails is there's a lot of consultations going on. And now whether people respond to or not, Chairman, is a matter for them. But one thing they should have is a chance to do so. So I'm a great believer that you put consultations out and people have the chance to respond, but we can't make them respond. It's up to them if they wish to respond. Depends how strong their feelings are. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Forgotten to put my hand up there. I just wanted to say something in defence of a printed publication. Some months ago now, I highlighted, and it was brought to my attention by a resident in one of my villages, that he hadn't received a copy of Daventry Calling. So when I delved into this further, it turned out that in fact there had been a glitch in the distribution, for whatever reason. Because of course, as we all know, a system is only as good as its weakest link. And somewhere at the bottom of the chain, there had been a distribution problem. When I investigated further, both with Councillor Howard and our communications team, and my entire ward, it transpired that there were people who hadn't received it and actually actively missed it. Where is it? Why hasn't it come? I then arranged for Councillor Howard to organise extra copies to be physically posted out to these people. I then had a system going where my parish clerks were encouraged to make sure that residents reported to them any instances of non-delivery, and also I made absolutely sure that when I knew that delivery was taking place in that 2-week timescale, that my parish clerks knew that, and to report any incidents of non-delivery to myself. And as a result of that, I now have a very happy ward in terms of delivery of Daventry Calling, but it just highlights the fact that this publication is needed, is wanted, is valued by residents, and they're not always going to go on Facebook or Twitter or using social media or any other form. They want something they can sit in the chair with a cup of tea and read. That's all I need to say, Chairman, and I'm very glad that Councillor Howard has looked after this publication. Long may it continue.
Thank you very much. Councillor Auger.
take Councillor Ritchie's first.
Councillor Ritchie has already spoken on
Sorry,
this
sir.
matter.
It was just really to make an old. It is historically difficult to get a communication strategy right. You know, my previous experience, to try and get information out there and get information back to the community has always been a challenge for public services. I think what this council is doing is has a number of mediums in which it's trying to reach out. Daventry recording. Daventry recording is just it's just one way of doing it. Is it perfect? Well, no, it's not perfect, but none of the ways are. But as part of a communication strategy, it is important, especially to those people who we represent that don't have access to the other mediums. So with regard to the holistic approach to communication, I think it's a very wise thing to continue with some sort of written form to get to perhaps some of those hard-to-reach people that haven't got access to social media.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to correct a few things, really. First of all, without being pedantic, Councillor Paul, it is you can take a horse to water, you can't make it drink. And we're using that analogy even further, that's because there's lots of other drinks to have at the same time in terms of accessing social media, which people do, plainly. Councillor Carter mentioned having the time and leisure to sit back and drink a cup of tea, reading the magazine. For most people, that isn't achievable. They read information on the go. They read information on the go. They're busy lives. They access along with social media. So we should have a blended strategy, actually, targeted with a rationale. I take all your points, and I think in some ways you agree that we don't then have to facilitate a carte blanche approach where we're mailing everyone in the district. And just to correct Tony Gillett also, the intention may have been from Councillor Ritchie to suggest that there are more issues that will be delivered. And in fact, if we're looking prospectively for a Churchfield site, 4,000 houses, times 23, that's another £1,000. So in fact, never mentioned about the amount of deliveries a year, but if you look back at the tape, if you want to listen to it, but the total cost and the amount of issues, which I think we can agree, as new houses built, then we'll have to cover that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie, you've spoken on this matter before. You pointed out to me that the Constitution says that people must be brief. It also says a member who has spoken on any motion may not speak again whilst it's under the subject of debate. Councillor Carr.
Chair, have you not got a right to reply to an insult made by
No, you don't. Sit down.
I would grateful, Chair, if you would please the speaking by ensuring that Council.
I told you to sit down and be quiet. Please do so, or I'll have to ask you to leave. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. I personally believe that the Daventry Calling is a brilliant piece of literature put out by this council to serve the purpose it's meant to serve, is the constituency Daventry. I have various number of people have commented to me how good it is, in fact, in keeping in touch with the Daventry Council. The people that seem to moan about it have no alternative. I mean, what is their alternative? No one's ever said. And also, go on about the cost, and people probably don't even read it or read the first few pages and then it goes to the recycle bin. Are the very same people that come election time and putting leaflets through people's door at a cost, knowing damn well they're not politically minded or don't care about what's going on in the district. They're not going to read it. So as Councillor Colin Paul has said, you know, you can't force them to read it, but it's there if they are minded to and want to know what's going on in the district.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Howard, do you wish to respond to any of the comments that have been made?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Wow. Isn't it amazing how much debate 23p? The amount of conversation we have, 23p per household. Well, okay. I'm a little bit disappointed with some of our accounts tonight, simply because this publication goes out to some of the most neediest people within our district, some of the people that need the information, which I've already mentioned. Can I just answer a couple of questions that came from Councillor Swift? We have already made contact with every parish within the district. We've sent out emails asking them, or stating to them that we are sending out the recording that's going out now until the 18th of December, and then we would like them to come back to us with names and addresses and postcodes, so that will help us with future deliveries. Councillor Guildford, you mentioned about getting them into your surgery, which I'm very pleased to hear. We actually send out quite a few copies to a number of surgeries within our district, including the Evelyn Wright group. Now, these people don't necessarily use the internet, don't probably use mobile phones because it's the way they live their life. I personally know that the people living in one of the Evelyn Wrights look very much forward to this publication. It tells them things about the district, it tells them what's going on, and they can have events, because it tells them about the villages and what's going on in the area. I would like to thank the councillors who do support this tonight, and I would also like to make just one correction that was mentioned tonight about going out to the other, to increasing the numbers. We can't legally do more than 4 publications per year, and that's a requirement not by us but by law. Sorry if I didn't answer all the questions, and if I missed any, then please ask and I'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I put the matter now to the meeting. The recommendations you've seen, Daventry calling continue to be published 4 times a year, and that the gross bid of £6,000 covered distributions cost be approved. All those in favour, please. Any against? Thank you. That will be recorded. We move on. The recommendation is carried. Local government pension scheme discretions. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Gifford. No.
Griffin, actually.
Yes, I am.
I'm a mythological beast, if that
So you are.
This review refers to additional benefits. If the council fails to make a policy decision tonight, we will be open to challenge on this. Importantly, the council retains the right to change the policies, but the current policy at the time of an event would apply. This policy, if agreed tonight, will give the council the means to make organisational change. Thank you, Chairman. Do you want me to do the recommendations? It's recommended from the strategy group, where members consider the report, that the council adopts the discretion policy and Appendix A.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Miller. Do you wish to speak? No, Victor. Any contribution? Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you. I found this paper was quite confusing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I found this was quite confusing because actually when you look at Appendix A, a lot of it just says it will not exercise this discretion. So I think it would have been much more easy to understand if any new bits were put together, what was already... I assume, by reading this, is that things that have already been granted that we are going to vote on again. Is that correct?
Councillor Good.
I think Councillor Randall is right. The report is complicated, and Appendix A in particular, I think, to go through it all again now might not be helpful, but I wonder if Tony Gillett would like to make...
Just before you do that, can I point out to members that when somebody else is speaking, you must sit. Mr. Gillett.
I'm sorry. Everyone's because I'm finished, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to respond to Councillor Randall's points about the appendix. What the appendix does is set out what discretions are available to the council, and then actually comments as to whether the council will be choosing to take up those discretions or not. So it is set out in an orderly fashion, and the detail is there for members to see.
Thank you. Yes, you want to finish your contribution.
Yeah, it was under point E, on point 2, where it says, to award lump sum compensation of up to 104 weeks' pay in case of redundancy, termination or employment efficiency grounds. Where it says Daventry District Council will exercise its discretion, the maximum compensation to be awarded is 79.8 weeks. This has been adopted previously. So my point was, because it's been adopted previously, do we have to adopt it or can we change it?
Councillor Griffith, can you respond to that, please?
Well, I'll do my best. We can change these policies at any time. I think you find in Appendix A, it is everything. Well, when I went through the Appendix A, I marked everything that we were either going to carry on with that was new or that we were discounting. I don't know if that's any help at all.
I think the officer might be able to help us.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think with this particular example, the discretion is available to the council to award lump sums of up to a maximum of 104 weeks. The council has a current arrangement of up to 79.8 weeks, and the proposal is that it stays at 79.8 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. That's clear. Can I put this to the meeting? Agreed. Any again? We'll move on. Local Strategic Partnership 2016 update. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. The Local Strategic Partnership is a non-statutory body which attempts to identify local needs in order to improve health and well-being of the community. It includes people from the business, voluntary and community sectors. It has undergone a review because previously it had three different focuses: health, business skills and environment. And it was thus a bit fragmented. And hopefully, now that it has been reviewed and structure changed, it'll be much more focused in its aims. And I understand that now it's been replaced with a health and wellbeing partnership forum, that is working well. It now has an executive of 8 to 10 members, whereas there was many more people involved before. Some meetings, however, were not attended and so on. So it's much more focused. And the recommendation is this, cut to the chase. The revised structure of the Daventry Local Strategic Partnership, including the terms of reference for the LSP Executive and the LSP Health and Wellbeing Partnership Forum, are set out in Appendix A as revised, and Appendix B is endorsed.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to say something, if I may. Totally support this recommendation. People may ask, what is the LSP? Well, it's a non-statutory body with representatives from agencies and business, although we could do more. I'd like to see more representatives from business, the voluntary and community sector. The aim is to identify local needs and agree a strategy. They have no formal powers, so members and partners are accountable to their own organisations. The district council involvement is, in a way, an enabling one, but it's that the meetings are held on council premises. It's involved in management, and decisions are made by partners at the meetings, and what we particularly look for as a district council are the outcomes, because that's very important. The council sometimes may also play a part in the implementation of these decisions. Now, strategy, Councillor Lomax said that the Daventry LSP was the most successful in the county. And I thank her for that comment, and it's one that I totally endorse. Partners and members took part in the review. They all had an input, The board has been replaced, as said, by an executive, and the 3 theme groups replaced by a health and wellbeing partnership forum. And I'd just like to say again, I certainly support this recommendation and happy to second it.
Thank you very much. Any other contributions? Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to refer back to my comments at Strategy Group. Councillor Hills has partially helped in this respect, but I do think, particularly now that health and well-being is so high on the agenda, that in fact we do need more information. And I did ask about a member training session, and I hope that can be arranged. But it may be that we can inform the public through Daventry calling about what actually happens and the sort of outcomes which we're hoping for from the revised structure.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Can I put this to the meeting? Green. Any against? No. Thank you. Development of Daventry Sports Park, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Now, this is slightly contentious in a way, but it's about the review and enhancement and development of Daventry Sports Park. This is badly needed and quite frankly long overdue. The recommendations are a grant of up to $360,000 from the FAO, the Football Foundation as it's known, is available for enhancing the changing rooms and the Archbishop pitch. That a supplement agreement is put in place between the District Council and SLM, who run the Leisure Centre. That up to £200,000 of planning obligation funds and earmarked capital reserves be authorised to be used. Now, I went into quite a bit of detail strategy, but I want to detail this again. The proposal is actually to refurbish one side of the changing rooms, provide a classroom, which I think will be a valuable asset, and refurbish the reception area, and the current AstroTurf will be turned into a 3G pitch, making it more suitable for FA League games starting in spring 2017. Let's first of all look at the impact on football. Currently 17 teams use the site, and some of these are women's teams. We don't only cater for men, we cater quite a lot of women's sports, and we encourage women's sports, and the next item on the agenda is very much something that we are hoping to encourage more women into sport. Over a 5-year period, the use will increase dramatically. We all know that different types of sport need different surfaces. We've seen, unfortunately, it would no longer be suitable for hockey, and I understand there is some disappointment. However, there are facilities at William Parker Academy, and they are happy to accommodate extra bookings. So, what we're looking at is not to displace hockey, that hockey is not lost to Daventry, and our officers have been in discussions over the last 2.5 years with the national body for hockey, and I believe further discussions are ongoing between Julia Lewis at DDC, the Leisure Centre and Long Buckley and Saints Hockey Clubs. To summarise, I said this was badly needed and overdue. I would like to refer back to my comments made at Strategy that a few years ago funding was obtained to turn the tennis courts into all-year usage. This was refused at planning, and that was a democratic decision. I've no qualms with that. But it meant that there was some funding granted that we had to turn down. And once you turn down any funding, in today's age, it's very difficult to get back on the list. It's taken all this time to do so. If this were rejected, I doubt we would be considered for a very, very long period. Let's take this opportunity. There is a need for pitches for clubs at Browns Road. Plus Browns Road is used quite a lot by N Sport. N Sport do a lot of work in schools. They encourage disability, and at times they pass in schools throughout the district as part of the school programme. They don't just use it for football, they use it for running and other things. So it's not just going to be used for football from the school's point of view. Scrutiny was well attended, not just by scrutiny members, but by other councillors, and there was overall support from all parties. And I ask for this support again.
Thank you very much. Do you have a second to that? Councillor Paul, do you wish to speak now?
I'm happy to second it, but I'll come back later.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, the strategy group, it was county council meeting the same day, and during that day, which was a very, very long county council meeting, I received an email from Longbutt Min Daventry Hockey Club, from the president, who I know very well, who lives in Longbutt and comes from Watford. I couldn't put their views forward at the strategy group because I didn't receive the email. I was at county council. But I think it's important that even though, you know, we have these recommendations, that their views be put forward. I mean, Longbutt and Daventry Hockey Club, 30 years ago, wanted to play on AstroTurf, and they were looking to get AstroTurf on the Longbutt sports field. But they were advised at that time by this council that it wouldn't be able to support it because of the cost. But that they could come to Daventry and use the facility there. And in their words, they were convinced that DDC would continue to supply a ground and support their sport. Their complaint basically, Chairman, is the fact that nowadays we use the word consultation quite a bit, and their problem was their consultation appeared to be one person turning up and talking to one of their players about it, not what I call an official consultation, but that was it. They found out via one of their players. And the suggestion was that they move to Falconers Hill School, which the hockey club consider is totally unsuitable. The pitch is nowhere near the changing room facilities. It floods, and also they have younger people that have to get changed, as well as older people, of course, but they have to be supervised in this day and age, younger people, when they're in changing rooms. So they consider that's not a suitable place to use for their facility. They are looking at other facilities, and I gather that they're outside this county, as well as looking at perhaps getting a more efficient, up-to-date pitch in Longbutt. But it will require this council in the future giving them some verbal help and financial help, and I would expect and I would hope to ask the portfolio holder that this hockey club, they're good, they're efficient, they achieve as well, so when they do come in and ask for help for their sport that they've been doing for years, that this council looks favourably towards helping them financially and any way they can, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Hill, before you do that, I think Councillor Paul wanted to say something in support of your motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I have total empathy with the hockey teams. However, we're in a catch-22. We have to provide value for money for our residents and numbers of use. The point that I made at Strategy Group, when I said that I would be happy to second this, is that my disappointment with Hockey England, or English hockey, whatever way round it is the fact that we had Olympic medals for our ladies hockey team. And the word has come back to me that they don't feel that this area is viable, or words to that effect. Well, you know, an oak tree grows from an acorn. I'm not disappointed with the fact that it would move into a school premise, purely and simply because it would then act with as a feeding ground into the hockey. I echo the previous speaker that we need our officers to speak to English hockey, and hopefully there is some money on the back of, you know, the legacy of the Olympics. Now, you know, we have established hockey teams in this area. I think it is our duty to look after them. I think the problems that we have will be short term, and I'm sure the portfolio holders and our officers will work with them to get the facilities improved, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to come to the portfolio holder last, of course. Councillor Randall.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Reading the report at Strategy Group, where it says there's suitable hockey at Parker Academy on the Askew Road, you know, and I assumed that, obviously, firstly, that all the hockey groups would have been informed what was happening. That seems that it didn't happen. I've spoken to the head at Parker School to see, you know, what discussions have been had. He doesn't play hockey. He's got Astro pitches there, and of course he wants to see his pitches hired out. As we know, they've got, you know, huge number decreases at the school, so any money that he gets coming into the school will only help school provision. But talking to actual hockey teams, Parker School isn't suitable. There's a lot of things there, as we heard from Abby, even things down to no spectator toilets, no water. You know, all these are just basic provisions. So they can't play there, they can't hold matches there. The juniors will not be able to play there, you know, because of these, well, the provision that it just isn't there. Obviously, Councillor Miller did say that they could have the nets and they can, you know, have the benches, but that still hasn't replaced the facilities, the basic facilities, the changing facilities that they need. If they're going to use the school, they were going to have some sort of building, whether it's, I don't know, some small building where they can actually provide refreshments and toilets. Also, the court, I've heard, needs new shocks on it, and it's very sandy, so that would need sweeping, so that's in around about 30,000. So I would say for the hockey provision to go to Parker, you would actually be looking about 100,000. Now, I'm very, very disappointed that a sports park is going to become a football park. Councillor Miller did state about the increase in the ladies' football teams, but they're already playing. So they've got that provision, whether you have this free pitch or not. But if you actually take away those pitches from the sports park, those 100 ladies involved in the hockey have got really nowhere to go. So you are actually taking away a sport. So you're not increasing the sport really. Those women already play that football already, and they play on grass. But I think, you know, I'm really disappointed that actually not everybody involved has been gone through the discussions. And, you know, when I get these reports through, I feel that, you know, reading it, that everything, all avenues have been investigated. But I'm talking to other people and I find I haven't. And I actually find that very, very disappointing, because we are making decisions from these papers. We don't know all the background information. I wouldn't have known all that background information if I hadn't gone and chased it. So I would propose that if you do go ahead with this recommendation, that 100,000 from wherever, planning obligation or wherever, would be used to provide new facilities for the hockey team at possibly Parker School. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
If I might declare, in a past life, I worked in sport and was the chairman of N Sport for many years. I also was one of the architects of the specifications of 3G pitches for FIFA and the International Rugby Board to make sure that they could be cross-pollinated as sporting provisions. So a Football Foundation 3G pitch is also suitable to play rugby on, just for that one element so that members are aware. I'm also aware intimately of the process of allocating funds, both by the Football Foundation and by the Rugby Football Foundation, for the procurement of 3G pitches and the work that goes into that in the first place. And football is uniquely placed in that not only does it get money from government, it gets money from the Premier League and it gets money from the FA to the tune of approximately 60 million a year, which I have to say hockey will never get. And that's no disrespect to hockey, it's just the way in which professional sport works. And for all the gold medals that hockey win, and I think it was fantastic this year, and I congratulated the chairman of England Hockey only earlier this week on their medals, that will not drive additional funding in the same way as the Football Foundation can provide to football. That said, the portfolio holder is absolutely right. We are in a cleft stick. In that, if you don't take the money now, you've already said once, no thank you, you won't get it again. You won't get a third bite of the cherry. That doesn't mean there's any less of an issue for the ladies and the hockey team, but actually this is now about a bird in the hand and whether or not we take the strategic decision to invest in a 3G pitch for both football and rugby use at the sports park. As to a hockey pitch, I'm sure the ladies would prefer a water-based pitch and play at that level, and that would cost much more than 100,000, as probably would replacing the shocks to current standards, particularly around the prevalence of concussion in young people. And those of you that follow rugby will have seen all the issues with George North at the weekend over his repeated concussion through landing on the ground, albeit from a poor tackle, but he has now been knocked out 3 times. So in fact the shocks that need to go in now need to sustain a head height drop of 1.1 metres, and that's basically where you drop someone's head from 3.5 feet onto the ground. And the move from the current provision to that will cost substantially more. I would also concur with my colleague from Long Buckby that we ought to, as a council, look to provide additional funding to support hockey in the short term going forward and not procrastinate and leave this for a long time, because we are depriving one of the few sports that is active amongst the females gender in the district and really support them going forward. So I would urge my colleagues to support this proposal from the Football Foundation, but also for the portfolio holder to actively seek additional funding to support the women's hockey structure in the district so that they've got suitable and equivalent facilities for them to play hockey going forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Chairman. At the beginning of the meeting, Councillor Miller referred to the value that this council places on sport. Quite a number of things that I was going to say have already been said by other members. However, it's obviously, absolutely clear that hockey is actually being given a poor deal this time. I'm very much in favour of actually accepting the grant. I think it's a very good thing that we've got it, and I think we should go ahead with it. However, it is a sports park, and what I would like to do is to propose a 4th recommendation, if I may, and that would be, I know it's been said, but I think it just has a little bit more force if it comes as a recommendation and it's there in writing, that the District Council actively encourages SLM to work with the Hockey Club to secure a permanent facility fit for purpose in conjunction, if appropriate, with tennis, because I believe that they actually share the same facilities, they can actually use the same surfaces, and it does seem to be that we missed an opportunity 2 or 3 years ago, and that was a great shame. And if we want to have aspiration and if we want to have ambition for our sports people in the district, I think we have to do everything that we possibly can. We're going to be a growing town, 40,000 population. People will want to come here, and businesses will want to come here if they know that the facilities are here for leisure and for other activities, and it will only do us good, actually, to be promoting good facilities for a whole range of sports. And so I would like to suggest, well not suggest, but to propose that there is a 4th recommendation to that effect, and that in fact the District Council should monitor progress and report back to the Council on a regular basis as to how far we've proceeded with those facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a second over there.
Well, I have to second it, Chairman.
Oh, Councillor Miller, do you wish to speak now?
I want to speak as well, yes, just for me. I want to thank Councillor Lomax for that contribution, actually. I think that's a very good point about tennis, actually, Chairman. There's more money in tennis than there is in hockey. And we're having the world #1 now, Nathan Murray. There's obviously a tremendous amount of interest in tennis. Maybe that's something we can maybe work to our advantage as well to help the hockey as well as tennis, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you want to take that? Because I've got a few people who speak to you. Right. Yes. Yes, thank you. I'm just making sure we get this right. There is a proposal, probably seconded, for a 4th recommendation. Did somebody make a note of what it actually was?
I think we've got the basic gist of it. I was writing furiously at the time, Chairman, so I understand. Writing furiously at the time. If people want it repeating, we might have to ask the proposer, or we can rely on what was said.
Yeah.
I think it was clear, wasn't it?
As long as you're clear. We've got it obviously for recording purposes.
Yeah.
We've got the...
In that case, can I put the proposal to the meeting that this be added as a 4th recommendation before we decide whether or not we accept the recommendation? Agreed. That seems to be overwhelmingly supported. Right, now before we go to the vote, Councillor Pritchard, you want to speak here?
No, in fact, a lot of the points have been covered already by different councils. It's great to see such great consensus between everyone here to try and protect this. This hockey club, which has a great reputation, not just around here, but as far as West Midlands, Worcester, in terms of the matches that they play. Ever heard of the hockey club? They value its history, and they value that fraternity as well. And it's great to see that we are in a position to support them financially and make sure that they're not forced out of the district. So I thank everyone that joined together to enable that to happen.
Thank you. It's unusual harmony, but I did recognise it. Councillor Hills, you wanted to come back now?
Yes, I do. I'll take things in order. First of all, I thank Councillor Lomax's recommendation. I support it, so I don't see any problem there. I think it's something we must do. I also thank Councillor Bunting for his comments, because I know his interest in sport, his interest in rugby, and in Daventry, yes, the football pitches can be used for rugby, which I'm very pleased about. And also, when we look at Daventry Rugby Club, they've had quite a lot of grant funding from the national body to upgrade their area and their changing facilities. And I was happy to go along there with the mayor at the opening ceremony, so they've done rather well as well. And he's right, it is a favoured company. We have to take this money, otherwise lose the chance forever. And I'd like to thank Councillor Osborne. Because one thing I know about Councillor Osborne is that he will always stick up for Long Buckby and puts Long Buckby at the heart of everything he does. And I thank his comments, and I'd just like to make a couple of comments in the start. It's true the hockey clubs are over 30 years old, and it's something we can't just ignore. I take that on board. We, and I say we, including myself as a council, are anxious to support all sports. And those of you not enough go, but go along to the sports awards. You want to see some of the different sports that get the awards. You mentioned Sailing Club, and dare I mention Sailing Club? Yes, I will. Bidford Sailing Club got an award one year. Daventry Table Tennis Club got an award one year. The Bowls Club. We do not just go for the major sports. We encourage all sports, and where we can help, we will. And I assure Councillor Osborne that if we can help, we certainly will as a council. We have had discussions with England Hockey, and they did support the fact that we were going down to William Parker School. And one of the comments made was that the pitch itself was revamped only 2 to 3 years ago. So presuming that was a good surface. We found that there was no funding available for England Hockey, as they didn't regard it as a major sport within the district in comparison with others. So we have to look at what we can do. There was a letter actually when we talk about consultations, etc. And I had a copy of a letter sent by Simon Bowes on the 24th of November to a lady called Joyce Galtree, outlining the position, and which gave them a point of contact to, which was Julie Lewis, who's sitting over there, who has a lot to do with the sport and the leisure centre. I've also spoken to Mel Bland at the leisure centre, Mel Bland of Everyone Active, who will also help if she can, because again, she works with us very well. We have an excellent partnership, and we do all we can to encourage all sports. So I'm convinced that if we can help, we will. If it's possible to do so, we as a district council will. So together with the recommendation that's been accepted, I would ask you now to vote in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have indication as to the meeting's feelings on these now 4 recommendations? Any against? No. Good. Let's move on. Next item is the Women's Tour 2017, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. It's becoming a Hills night at the moment. The Women's Cycle Tour. Something I'm very excited about, particularly the benefits it can bring to the town and the district. I'm using the word benefit for the benefit of councillors who did not make strategy. I will go into as much detail as I can, because I think it's right that you get the understanding of the importance of the decision we're going to make. Firstly, the recommendation that this council wishes to host the start of the Northamptonshire stage, with a maximum of £50,000 be allocated towards the cost of hosting that stage. Now, to go back, as I said at strategy, a few weeks ago, our Chief Executive Ian Vincent, Simon Bovey and myself sat down with representatives from N Sport, the County Council and the race organisers to look at and discuss the proposal. I think the words I used that night, and I'll use them again, that we at the time were somewhat, I think it was circumspect, was the word I used. However, we had a full and frank discussion, and from this we formed the opinion that this was something we could look at further because of the benefits that were to be gained from hosting this. Now, the Women's Tour is a professional event. It has gone from strength to strength. It has attracted worldwide media attention. It's shown on ITV4, and it's certainly covered in many other countries. Cycling in this country is gaining popularity due to the success we've had at 2 Olympics. Our events that we hold within the district, just a couple of examples, Cycle Fest, the triathlon and other events, show this. But this will still give us a big boost to cycling within our district. And on benefits, it will promote Daventry on the world map. It's great for our Love Daventry programme. It will promote our town and many of our villages. It will also promote our businesses, and I hope they take full advantage of it. And where other councils have played host, there has been increased spending, which has certainly been a big boost to their local economy. The tour will run from the 7th to the 11th of June, and we have been offered the grand departure stage, the very start where it gets the most media attention. That's very important. And when you look at it, first of all, there's the police outriders, the sponsors, team cars, and teams, and some individual participants as well. They bring with them, if it's a team, all their entourage. You have people who come from abroad to watch certainly the start of the race and the finish of the race. So this is not just a small event. It's an event that we, as a district council, should be proud to take part in and take full advantage of it. We talk about encouraging women's sport, and I believe this will certainly encourage women's sport. It comes under our health agenda. It encourages physical activity, and as I say, it should encourage more women to take up sport. There is no doubt that following last year's event, the media and the organisers were greatly encouraged from the support the towns and villages showed at last year's event, and that has helped us in these negotiations. There are 2 or 3 indicative routes, which one will be selected, and we will have some input. And there is excellent coverage of our villages. We will of course be seeking sponsors, but we can't rely on that. The 50,000 will be money well spent, as I believe the benefits far outweigh the costs. Definitely. We intend to involve local schools. In the villages, they can be involved. Schools can be involved at the start, prior to the start. We can also hold some events afterwards. So those things are in the scheme of things. So there could be various activities to encourage youth and young people, because we want to encourage women, but we want to encourage our schools and young people as well. This is, to me, confirmation, and we've used the word that Daventry is open for business. We want to increase the profile of Daventry, encourage sport and physical opportunity, and there are opportunities, and with opportunities come benefits, which I've outlined to you all, and they are there to see. We had to give the organisers a firm indication of our support from strategy, and I am pleased to say that we received cross-party support. I would have been very surprised if we hadn't done so. Now the organisers have allocated us a contact. We have a staff manager, a chap called Mark Leyland, who will correspond with us. The officers are ready. They're ready to show what they can do, and I hope that you are all ready in endorsing this. Finally, I would like to add that the organisers have said no official announcements or press releases are to be made without coordination with them and their partners, and I would ask people to observe this. So I think, as a barrister would say, thereby I rest my case, and I ask you all to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Amy Howard, I think you will second it.
Yeah, I'm happy to second, sorry, I can't stand up very well, this fantastic opportunity for Daventry and all its residents, especially our children, and I feel that they should be supported by all members, so thank you, Chair.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to agree with Councillor Hills on this. It's a great opportunity for Daventry and the district, and the tour has been good. Northamptonshire has been good to the tour anyway. I think it's the third year it's been through. I've actually watched it on all 3 years, and it has got bigger. And I have to say, I think Daventry and the surrounding villages did it really, really proud last year. It was such a good spectacle. I actually went back round on the opposite way on the route on my bike, and still go out in the streets afterwards. It was absolutely brilliant. It does give us an opportunity to say that yes, we're open, we're here, but it also gives us an opportunity to take it forward in future years, because once you've had it and you've done it right, then I've no doubt it will come back and possibly even other races. What I would urge this council to do is embrace and encourage and work with the local cycling community, in particular Daventry Cycling Club, who did try and get involved in last year's, but were a little bit too late, and were quite disappointed they didn't get to Marshall Newnham Hill. But everyone was out in force, and people tried to do their bit. And there are other cycling groups in and around the town. And I think let's get everybody possibly involved in this and make it really, really good there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd just like to congratulate Councillor Hills on liaison regarding establishing the tour and the tour start as well, which is most important stage, as we're aware. So thank you for that. There isn't a bug really, however it is £50,000. So instead of could and should, there must be some modelling where there's been a depart before, where you can suggest how much income and revenue the Daventry district might get. I know that's not the only premise and the only benefit. This is a benefit to sport, especially young, especially young ladies and girls as well. But certainly, my infancy as a councillor, I've certainly learned from Councillor Morgan in terms of scrutiny committee that I think it's the least we should do really is have some kind of modelling. I don't have those figures today. Thank you.
I'm not sure if it's possible to give figures, but it might be interesting to find out. Councillor Poole.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Economic regeneration, tourism, all come under my wing. The fact that Yorkshire, with the tour, the economic benefits to Yorkshire far exceeded a £50,000 upfront donation, grant, sponsorship, call it what you like. I do appreciate that some of the sponsors have come in already, but the Councillor Hills has already said the amount of team, entourage, etc., coming into our hotels, our pubs, our restaurants, into the village shops, into the farm shops, whilst they're there. We have an ideal opportunity to sell Daventry in the same way as we sold Daventry 9 years ago with the first ever National Transport Conference. A lot of people poo-pooed that, but the message went worldwide. This will go worldwide, and the knock-on effect is that, as Councillor Hill said, Daventry is open for business. It promotes inward investment. That is immeasurable, and the economic benefits far outweigh. We can get the figures from Yorkshire, and I think it will be a great benefit.
Thank you very much. Simon, do you want to speak now?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Questions asked about the figures. I have some figures which are linked to Northamptonshire, which were supplied to ourselves by N-Sport, so they've got N-Sport's endorsement. They are produced for the race organisers, and it was the analysis of stage 5 last year, which is Northampton to Kettering, and the net visitor expenditure and then a proper appraisal and evaluation, the net visitor expenditure to Northamptonshire was £1.625 million. That was based. That's one stage, and that's based, if you like, on a web-based survey. It was understand about 1,000 people. But I would also suggest to you it's also about the build-up, what shops can do, in particular in the high street. What we've learned is that shops who take advantage of the occasion can actually get an increase in footfall in the shop. Displays, for example. So it's going to be good for the town centre of Daventry, fits in with Love Daventry, and all those sorts of aspirations. So there is some economic analysis, there is tremendous benefit, and as somebody said earlier, I forget which councillor, this is growing. And if we do indeed get confirmation that we have grand departure, that will be a dramatic change from what's previously been through our district.
Thank you very much, that is helpful. Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, Chair, and sorry colleagues for saying I've had the pleasure of working on international cycling events in and in France. I've had a very bad sports career, and so I apologise up front for that. But a grand depart is very different from a stage, very, very different. And it's not just on the day. And you will find that the teams will start to send people here to do recce's of the start, the journey, the road conditions. They'll want to look at it in different weathers. So the build-up will be quite significant. And although my colleague talks about 1.6 million for the economy, if you think about it in our terms, 50,000 is the same as 347 bed nights up the road. It's not very many that would bring in. And if our retailers and our industry and other revenue-generating businesses in the district grab it early, then they will find they'll get a significant benefit. Because the teams will want to stay locally. They will not want to travel for the depart. They'll want to be on the doorstep. And that will mean a lot of people staying overnight, a lot of people coming here. And you will have tens of thousands of people come for the depart. It is a fantastic, wonderful event, both the men's and the women's, and the women's is definitely growing and is a burgeoning sport. And from personal experience, you will love it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fraser-Owen.
Good evening. I think we spent a lot of time this evening discussing health and well-being, and I think this is fundamentally of great importance to the area, to the children and the community. Certainly from the small area that are the Bricksworth ward, I can tell you that there are 2 schools in Spratton, 500 pupils who all stand on the streets to watch it, and that is just in itself encouraging children to be healthy, to be active, and to be involved in sport, which is what we're all been discussing on 34 recommendations this evening. So I would support it.
Thank you. I think I can summarise that by saying that there are benefits other than money involved. Councillor Walker.
She quite eloquently raised exactly what I was going to raise, so thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Irving Swift, if you want to...
Thank you, Chairman. Also, every time we are in Northamptonshire, we have forgotten, people do not know how beautiful our district and our county is. So every time people go, they can see all the tourism, they can see our stately homes, they can see how beautiful the pubs are in every village. We have beautiful village and nobody seems to see that. The tour brings that to us and we see all the architecture, everything. So please, it's a great opportunity and we should support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can move to a vote on this now. Councillor Hills, were there any points that you wanted to respond to very quickly?
I'd just like to speak on this, that I was lucky enough to be involved in the initial tour. I got invited to some of the meetings, I got invited to the start, and then legged it down to Hawthorpe when I then saw them go by. And I was very surprised when I got talking to a cameraman after it all gone, and he turned out to actually be from Colombia. And I went, Colombia, what are they doing here? It just shows you the amount of worldwide travel this gets. Now I queried with a fellow county councillor from Kettering. I said, well, you know, do you think you know this? He said, well, I'm going to say it's a few 100,000. I think if our local economy benefits from a few £100,000 or more, then we as a county should not turn it down.
Thank you very much. Can I then put that to the meeting that we accept the recommendation regarding the women's tour? Good. We move on to the Braunston Neighbourhood Development Plan. Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to report that we've now given consideration to the report of the examiner as far as the draft final plan of Braunston is concerned. There has been one amendment, one omission, and the examiner agreed that there shouldn't be a separate area designated, an area of separation designated for Braunston, as that would interfere with the policies of the joint core strategy. Nevertheless, Braunston will be protected in the normal, usual way. A referendum date has been provisionally set for the 16th of February, and subject to more than half of those who vote voting in favour of the plan, then the business manager will make the plan immediately ballot declared. The recommendation is, and I'll read it out again in full, that significant progress in making the neighbourhood development plan NDP by the...
You actually don't need to read it all out. I think they are, yes. Does anybody wish to know? I need a seconder for that. Councillor Richard, thank you. Do you wish to speak? No, thank you. Does everybody agree with that? Avoid giving positive encouragement. Ravensthorpe is village design statement supplement to planning document adoption. Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I'm going to ask for a deferral in respect of this particular recommendation. And I would like to put up a proposal, defer to next strategy group to enable further consideration of the results of the consultation process.
Thank you.
I'd like to second it, Chairman.
Do you wish to speak?
No.
No. So, councillors, rather unusually, I'm not asking now, will you, well, first of all, will you accept the suggestion from the portfolio holder that this matter be deferred? Agree. Thank you. In that case, we can move rapidly on. We might do all of them. Revisions to customers self-filled register. Councillor James, please.
Customer self-filled register. For every year, the council has maintained a register of those who require self-filled customer-built houses. The government, in its wisdom, sought to impose that duty on councils because it feels it could contribute towards the supply of housing. And we know there are people who want to build their own homes, whether they do it themselves or get someone to do it for them. The government has now issued further regulations that enable the council to charge for maintaining the register and to ensure that they have an adequate supply of serviced plots available for people who want to build or custom build their own home. The eligibility for going on the register is similar to the housing allocation register. It's very, very wide. And it includes, to their credit, it includes care leavers and, of course, members of the armed forces too. So we stick to the military covenant there, as well as a whole range of other people with a local connection. The register will be in two parts: a Part 1 register, where a person can register their eligibility, and a Part 2, where people can register their ability to actually finance the purchase of land and the building of the house. That way we know what the genuine demand is locally for self-built and custom-built homes. Now, over the last year, I think we've only had about a dozen people on the register looking for service plots. But of course, there's always the possibility at some time in the future that there could be a perfect storm, and we haven't got planning permission for enough plots to meet the demand for those plots. The cost of going on the register is only going to be a nominal amount. It has been suggested a figure of something like £16 a year to go on Part 1, and if you're really genuinely serious, you want to go on Part 2 as well, perhaps something like £7 a year for that too. So it's not much at all to go on both registers then, if that turns out to be the charge that we set, something like £23 a year. A packet of cigarettes these days is £10, so puts it in perspective. So there will be review periods when the year will go from October 31st to October 30th each year. When the first period is over, those that we have planned for will drop off the list and we start again, so that there will always have to be a sufficient number of plots going forward. Now that's not going to be a great problem at this moment in time in Daventry district. As members of the planning committee know, there isn't a committee passes without some service plot being granted planning permission, some even plot or plots somewhere. So I wouldn't anticipate any difficulty from a perfect storm. These things do happen. So the recommendation is then, and I shall read it, that the revised approach to implementing the customer self-built register set out in the report be agreed.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder to that? Councillor August, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, sir.
Anybody wish to speak?
No.
Can I put that to the meeting? Agreed. Thank you very much. Slight change of topic now. Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy Mid-Year Review 2016-17. Councillor Shepherd, please.
Thank you very much. I was able to report to Strategy Group at this meeting, of course, with complete compliance with our conservative approach to investment. We've got almost 50 million spread over a number of solid institutions, all in sterling. The two headlines from that report were slippage, which is not surprising at this stage in the budget cycle, of the capital expenditure through events not within our control, and reduction, as one would be expected to hear, in the interest rates. Interestingly, we put out some 27 million in the 2 months to the leading up to the or today effectively in the last couple of months, and those interest rates are between 0.57 and 0.65% on that 27 million. Whereas this time last year we were edging just over 1%. There's a reduction suffered by our contribution to reserves. The reduction of interest doesn't hit the revenue budget as such. It means that in the next year or so we anticipate putting best part of 100,000 less in as a contribution to reserves. Ask that recommendation to be accepted, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Brown. Do you wish to speak? I don't, Chair. Nothing to add. Anybody else wish to speak? Can I ask the meeting whether or not they agree that that's recommendation? Thank you very much. Council tax reduction scheme. Councillor Shepherd.
Chairman, thank you. To understand this fully, one needs to go back to the September strategy group when we considered the government requirement to review the council tax reduction scheme, which of course replaced council tax benefits some 3.5 years ago, beginning in 2013. The review was triggered also and coincided with a number of government alterations to its benefit systems, and the general advice, which was accepted by a strategy group in September, was that it would be sensible to align the council tax reduction scheme with the adjustments to government benefit. This is for new applicants starting on the 1st of April. 4 options were considered by strategy group in September. Those went to consultation, and after consultation, the report was received by the November group. The Council's preferred option from September and endorsed by the consultation was what it's called option C, which, as I said, broadly brings in the changes to government benefits that have been forthcoming in the last few years. Councillor Ritchie made a couple of points on the debate at strategy. In particular, he asked what the impact on new families is expected to be. Well, that of course is very difficult to predict accurately because we're trying to estimate the new applicants with effect from April. Broadly, we expect there to be about 200 families who are, all of which would be affected next year. And the average impact, I'm told, is expected to be £181 a year, or £3.49 a week. That is through imposing such restrictions as, purely for example, that the current position is if you leave your house for 13 weeks, then you lose entitlement. And it's being proposed under the new scheme that if you leave the country 4 weeks, you lose entitlement. On your return, you have to reapply. There was some discussion at strategy group about that. I can confirm that there is a discretion that reduces the effect of that rule. It's not an absolute rule, it just reduces the effect of that rule. So if one can explain properly one's absence from the country in 4 weeks, then there is discretion not to apply the additional discount, if you see what I mean. And so broadly we recommend that the scheme as revised, as preferred by a strategy group, the preference having been endorsed by the consultation exercise that took place, now be adopted. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Osborne, I saw first. Tony, you wanted to speak?
Yes, Chairman, just a point of clarification. The portfolio holder referred to option C. It is in fact option 2.
Chairman, sorry, I couldn't read my notes.
Councillor Ritchie.
Option C.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of comments to make on this. As usual, we debate these issues. There are many things I say that are misunderstood. We've had a previous exchange this evening, but can I refer you to Part 6 of our Constitution? I appreciate our Constitution is a long document, but Section 14.5, referring to Section 14.13, makes it clear that if I feel that there's a need for a personal explanation, if my contribution has been misunderstood, I can at least ask for one. The chair, of course, has discretion. I would be grateful if you would note that. However, to my marks, I'm grateful for the extra figures that we have just been given. They were not quite the figures that I've been looking for when I asked my question at the strategy group meeting. Option 2 has got a number of separate provisions, of separate reductions that are going to be made. I would have been interested in seeing what was the financial implications of each of these reductions and how that made up to the total amount. Sorry, I wasn't sure if Councillor Osborne wanted to make that. I would have, because then we can see that, do we feel that all of these measures are actually necessary? And without seeing, without actually seeing that detail, I find it quite difficult to know how we actually arrived there at the total of 34,000. 34,000 must be the sum of a number of different savings that would have come from each of these measures. I feel that if we hadn't got this information, we just had a consultation, but without actually having, telling the consultees what the costs are, what the savings would be with each of these individual changes, I'm not sure what we were asking. I'm not sure that we can actually expect people to make a reasoned judgment, a reasonable balance between helping vulnerable people and reducing the costs for council taxpayers. Moving on, I'm also concerned about a consultation that seemed to be a little bit muddled about who it was asking and for what. I'm not sure what was expected by having a consultation that asked for views either from people who are never likely to need to use this scheme, never likely to need to rely on it, and others who perhaps are relying on it already, but whose benefits are not going to be changed by it. I would be much more interested to hear what people at the Citizens Advice Queue might think of it, what people working at the food bank might want to comment, other organisations of people working with poor and vulnerable people in our community. It is their views that surely would have been an awful lot more important. As it is, I just don't know what you are seeking. I think there's a danger that what you have got is simply prejudices. I'm worried that we are in a position as a council, leaving aside your views on 15,000 for a sailing club, we've agreed a large amount of money for football pitches. We've agreed a large amount of money for the start of a women's cycling tour. I'm for these things, but we've got to have a sense of priorities. If we can do that, why could we not come up with 34,000? Even if 34,000 is a realistic estimate, I think we need to, I have yet to see the figures that would give me confidence in it. 34,000. That is only about 50 pence per elector in the district. It is about a penny a week in the district. And if we feel that we can't actually go a penny a week to help some of the most vulnerable people in the district, then what sort of council are we? I think I made the point that the strategy group that Christmas is approaching. We are now only a couple of weeks from Christmas. We are only a couple of weeks from Christmas, and we have had a situation where, if there are performances of Christmas Carol, I fear that Daventry Council will be portrayed as a Scrooge in this whole matter. We are approaching a season where we are supposed to be full of care and compassion. Those who are religious are celebrating the birth of a child into poverty, and we are saying that we are going to cut the benefits that would be paid to larger families for new clinics for larger families. I just think this is something that would bring shame on us and that needs to be rethought.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
I said a similar sort of thing with strategy group, but I would like to cut on one point, Councillor Ritchie. What sort of council are we? Well, I'll tell you what we're not. We're not a Labour-controlled council. That's what we're not. We're a Conservative-controlled council, just so that you do know. We're not a Labour-controlled council. Right, going back to it. I mean, we've got a scheme here, and I said exactly the same strategy. This council, if it was a right-wing Conservative council, doesn't have to give anything. No benefits at all. Nothing at all. Doesn't have to give a penny. But it gave several options to a previous strategy group, and they decided to put it out to consultation, and they thought one was better than perhaps the rest. We asked people, and in the main, the people that were consulted, and they weren't people in food banks, they were the people that were being consulted were people that were getting the benefits. They decided they liked the same as that particular system. So that's what we agreed at Strategy Group. Now we agreed it knowing that we didn't have to give a penny. In fact, we could vote that we don't give a penny. Now you'd call us a Scrooge. We call us Scrooge. I don't believe we are. I believe we're a sensible council. We ask people what they wanted, and we're giving them something. We're giving them some help towards their problems, Chairman. I don't like these comments about Scrooge and Christmas and what sort of council are we. We're a caring council and we're a helping council, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask for a point of clarification for the illiterate and uninformed? That's me. On option 2C, in review of the military covenant, our Vice Chairman raised earlier, because I can't see any reference in this document where if a young serviceman on very low pay who lived in the district deployed abroad, that their council tax wouldn't be affected by this proposal. And clearly, as a signatory to the military covenant, I would hope that we take that into account at all times in our deliberations for those who go on to serve for us, sometimes in difficult and potentially lethal environments. And I would like some assurance from either the portfolio holder or the officers that the military covenant is included in the thinking behind this, particularly in option 2C.
Thank you, Chairman. I am the council representative on the county-wide working group looking at all matters regarding armed forces, which is existing servicemen, but there's actually quite a focus on people leaving the armed forces. To be fair, that's the main focus. So our policies are set, particularly, for example, the housing allocations policy, to ensure they're fair. I'm partway through a piece of work to make sure people in the armed forces and former servicemen aren't disadvantaged. So, for example, I've found out so far that we are not operating in such a way as to disbenefit anyone who's left the armed forces who's been in receipt of compensation, for example. They are still eligible for our benefits. So I'm partway through that study, and that will be widened out to Cole County. But if I haven't come across anything through that county-wide work at this point regarding housing benefits, but I can make sure that's included on the county group if required.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I can come back specifically on that point. There are exceptions for the general 4-week rule, and they include members of the armed forces who are posted overseas from Great Britain and continental shelf workers and mariners. In these circumstances, housing benefit may continue for up to 26 weeks when they're outside Great Britain.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. The survey's flawed. There you are. If you do purposive sampling, if you look at a group of people who are going to be protected and ask for their views, even though there are many comments at the back of the document which do provide interesting reading regarding how they feel it can penalise individuals, it wouldn't stand the scrutiny, this methodology, I can assure you, anywhere, by asking people who are then going to be protected what their thoughts are. But I will say one thing. I thank those people who did survey, because they actually agreed with option 1, even though there was 55% for a further option. If you look at the numbers in option 1, then you'll find out that vast majority, if you take out those that didn't respond, agreed that option 1 could be retained, and then more than disagreed with that option. So they agreed on 2 options in a majority, actually. So I thank them, thinking about others, new people who come into the district. That's the only point I wanted to make.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I feel it's very sad that we have to make this decision. Reading the comments on the back, I mean, I know that a lot of people, you know, £3 odd a week is not going to make a lot of difference, but to some, that is a huge amount of money. I was talking to 3 different families this week, all saying to me they're on 0-hour contracts. Some said they've got 2 days' work, some said they've got 3 days' work. They don't even know how they're going to, they don't know how to pay their rent, they don't know if they're going to pay the rent or buy their food. So £3 is, you know, it's huge loss to these people. And if they're already on it, they won't be losing it, but there's going to be new claimants like those, you know, that will be hit. And, you know, for that reason, I would vote against this recommendation.
Thank you. Yes, well, I thought we sort of reached here.
Chairman, just to come back to Monitoring Officer, the point that Councillor Ritchie made about what the Constitution says. I have the Constitution with me, I always carry it with me, as you know. The important point here is what was said in the actual exchange. I just want to give the clarification what was said in the exchange. What I heard, and I'm pretty sure the tape will back me up, is Councillor Ritchie asked to have a right of reply. Did not have a right of reply. What you can offer, and ask the Chairman for it, can I make a personal explanation of what you subsequently raised and time, and the date will make use of that. That is possible. But at the time, it's right of reply. And that does not apply to your good self in that date at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we, Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to speak?
I think there are only 2 outstanding matters, Chairman. I would remind members that this has been debated by Strategy Group on 2 separate occasions. The second occasion, we had the first occasion we identified option 2 as the preferred. The second occasion, following the consultation, where that preference was endorsed by the consultees. The consultation was on all existing recipients of the benefits, on 2,156. Of course, one would expect those people to be particularly interested because one would expect them to come in and off benefit. And of course, if they come off benefit and they come on benefit again next year, they're subject to the new rules. So I would expect them to be interested. The linchpin of the alteration is common sense, in that we are aligning ourselves very much with the government way of calculating benefit in the areas that are being proposed to be changed. That must make for greater simplicity and benefit to the public. Ask for the recommendation to be approved, Chairman.
Thank you. I put this to the meeting and those that will want to dissent. Can I see those show who are in favour of the recommendation, please? And those against, so that we know there are 3. Thank you. That has been recorded. We move on to the 2017-18 Capital and Revenue Budget Medium-Term Financial Plan. Councillor Shepherd.
Chairman, thank you. I'm not going to begin to go through the items which were considered by Strategy Group. There were numerous of them, as is noted in the minutes. Suffice it to say that the adjustments in revenue terms of the sums identified in these particular minutes, the new adjustments considered under this item, are about 480,000. The adjustments considered in this item and elsewhere at the meeting and elsewhere tonight, of course, slightly exceed that figure, such as the commitment to the Women's Tour. And all those adjustments result in our being able to deliver a budget in due course within the constraints and indeed within the encouraged straight to the government, which is a £5 council tax decrease. So as I say, rather than go through the innumerable heads here, if any members have got any specific points on the items minuted in the meeting, I can endeavour to take those. Otherwise, I invite members to accept the recommendation.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Miller, I saw. You wish to speak, Councillor Miller? Does anybody wish to? Councillor Randall?
Yeah, thank you. I hope I'm on the right page now. Because I've got back to the strategy papers now. It's not always easy to follow from council papers back to strategy. But is this the one where we've got the temporary homeless accommodation? Is that in this bit? Yeah. Right, on the temporary homeless accommodation, I would like more clarification on what that means. I did ask at the time whether this would be somewhere in Daventry, but what I'm wanting to know, is this going to be like a hostel where people will be able to go if they're homeless? And the other one on the recruitment and retention, this is for healthcare and the lease car eligibility. Is the healthcare a new? Is it new or is it already ongoing? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll seek clarification of that. Respond.
I'll need assistance on item 2. On the first point about temporary homeless accommodation, this is one of the few budget heads that is demand-led, rather like care and community at county level. And it's a budget that has been overspent considerably in various years. So the adjustment is simply to ratify the overspending of the budget, to increase the budget so that in future, the next year, we don't overspend it. I'm not aware of any specific new issue, but my officer is nodding happily, so she is.
Who wants to go first?
Maria will be able to answer that one. Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Shepherd is exactly right that we are currently overspent. The homeless budget is spent on a mixture of putting people in bed and breakfast accommodation and hotel as required when they're making a homeless application and we're assessing their claim. And we also have 3 properties in council owns currently that have up until now been used for temporary accommodation, which isn't always during the assessment stage. It's sometimes after we've accepted duty and we're not able, for one reason or another, to move them straight into social housing or other accommodation that's suitable to meet their needs. The proposal, the growth bid that's in the papers relates to taking on 3 new modest properties in Daventry to provide, and that would be on a rental basis, to provide temporary accommodation for families coming through in respect to the fact that we are seeing ongoing increased demand for homeless, and we're also finding that we're not able to move cases on as fast as we did in previous years. The last year or two has seen complex, longer running cases become more than normal.
Thank you, that's helpful. Councillor Ritchie, you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question and I also have a concern. My question arises from the capital budget that we're being asked to approve. Page 191 of the papers that went to the strategy group give the table with the different items here. One of them was a provision of 110,000 for Canal Arm boatlet planning. 25,000 in the coming year and 85,000 the following year. I would be grateful if the leader of the council or somebody could confirm that a boatlet is still part of DDC's plans, and whether the developers of Churchfield, I believe, have an interest in this, that they are happy with these plans. My concern is a relevant item. It's proposed that there should be 150,000 a year to assist in the recruitment and retention of staff. And I'm all for us having the best qualified, the most effective staff that we can actually find. I think, however, it is very, very important that we have staff that are totally committed to public services. Now, one of the options that we're told that the Chief Executive is reviewing includes healthcare. And I assume by that you mean private health insurance. You can stop me if that is not the case. I just feel that if we're in a position of saying that we want our people here totally committed to public services, the National Health Service is the jewel in the crown of our public services in this country. It is admired internationally. And I just feel that if we have people that are going to be attracted by the option of going private, then there is something wrong. I would have questions of their commitment to the sort of council that we want to be. Of course, the National Health Service is badly underfunded. But here we have a Conservative government telling us that the NHS is safe in its hands, but we have a district council.
Point of order, if I may. Is this appertaining to the agenda item?
I believe it's exploring a point of a budget item which might be appropriate.
If I can continue, Chair, as a district council, as you know, we are saying that, look, you know, for our senior staff, the NHS is not good enough. And I just feel that that is something that, you know, that we should not be offering. I accept that by the time that people are paid, if they want to use their own salaries to buy private healthcare, that is a matter for them. But I feel that it is giving the wrong signal if we say that we hope to attract people here by saying that those who are in the upper echelons of our pay scales should get something that is different. They may suppose it is better, but remember that most people that have private healthcare at some stage are going to need to depend on the health service, and the health service is at risk of being undermined by this sort of approach.
Thank you. I think Councillor Griffin may be able to respond to that point.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think we'd ever employ anyone just because they wanted private health insurance. So I don't think that is a matter we need to consider at all. But I would point out that the Chief Executive is currently reviewing various options. These are some of the options he's looking at. No doubt there'll be others. And we'll just wait, please, until we get a report back from SMT, which is more informative, allow him to get on with his work.
That sounds helpful. Thank you.
I wanted to answer the second question from Councillor Rattler. It was something new. I'm happy to stand up, and yes, that was a new suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Paul, I think you want to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe our staff are fully committed. I've said it before in this council chamber, and I'll say it again, to add an influence to anything that our staff are less than committed absolutely grates with me and will no doubt grate with our staff who have held us in absolute excellent esteem over the years. Councillor Ritchie talked about private healthcare within the public sector. Well, before addressing this council, may I suggest that he contacts Unison and gets a blanket agreement across all public sector workers regarding his thoughts, his comments. The other comment regarding a canal and a boat lift, we've already spoke about the women's tour coming in. I'm not going to repeat all that. The developers are out having consultations regarding their site. We are still in discussion. It is still in the discussion stage before they go out to consultation, and it will be wrong of me or anybody else to assume whether or not there was going to be a boat lift, a canal, 10 bridges, 4 bridges, or what at this stage. So I think that answers the question, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne, you wish to speak?
Yes, Chairman. Back in the old days, 30 years ago, when this council, like a lot of councils, were going through difficulty in recruiting certain people in certain areas, you had to get into the package of offering, if you like, goodies to get them to come to your council rather than to go to another council that was offering similar goodies. Also, you wanted to keep your staff as well, because staff all the time, like everybody, are always looking to move around, and staff from local government generally move to other local governments. So you had to introduce things like lease cars. I can remember going to a housing conference when there was a then Conservative chairman of housing for Northampton Borough. And I said, well, we're offering people lease cars. And we had to in certain positions within this council, because you could not get staff. We will never do that, she said. I can remember saying it now. Within a year they had to do the same thing because they couldn't get the staff. And you had to look at staff retention packages, you had to look at lease cars, you have to look at private medical insurance, you have to look at relocation packages, and if you want good staff and you want to keep your staff, you have to look at them. Not because they will look elsewhere, because other people do offer it.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. In context, to be fair, it only is under consideration and it only is under review. I mean, I looked at the senior management team minutes. What I find also interesting that you're looking towards perhaps feasibility of only some of the higher officers and not all the employees perhaps receiving private healthcare, and another model being all of you perhaps receiving private healthcare. I've never seen that before in terms of it being parity and equality. I do think there's a very low unemployment rate in this district. I'm not sure of your vacancy rate either, but I'm afraid that's a statement against the NHS really, because within your minutes you said in terms of some kind of productivity that you'd be able to return to work quicker. There's no evidence about that actually. And unfortunately people don't return to work often when they have diagnosed with terminal cancer, stroke and everything else. And the NHS does a wonderful job actually. I certainly would not want to see this council undertake private healthcare at taxpayers' expense. If you want it, pay for yourself. I don't have it. Nurses and doctors don't have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Having worked for many years in recruitment, I think to get the best people, you've got to pay the best salaries. We all want as a council to have people who've worked in businesses, who have all got the experience, who've all got the training, and those people require salaries and benefits, and that is just a natural way of business and recruitment policies across the country, not just in the council.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Shepherd, I guess you want to respond to some of that before we go to the vote?
Chairman, I'm pleased to say that I think I've noted that the outstanding questions raised by members have been answered by officers. I would observe that my report to Strategy Group under this particular heading of revenue growth bits identified 16 revenue growth bits. I said in opening that I didn't intend to go through them. I'm in members' hands, Chairman, if in future reporting this sort of item, one should go through them individually, because if members had not brought their strategy papers with them, or printed them off if they were delivered by email, they wouldn't know really very much what we were talking about, because the reports are in some detail at page 316, etc., of strategy. I would invite members, particularly those opposition members on the strategy, to consider the point that strategy group is the venue, the proper venue for detailed discussion, scrutiny of such items as revenue bids. None of these items that we'll be discussing now, recruitment and retention, temporary homeless accommodation, capital budget, were raised by members at strategy. Indeed, if one looks at page 65 of the strategy group minutes, one will see that there are 2 or 3 paragraphs. In fact, the only minutes of the report of this debate was about rates of payment and shorter hours at the ticket machines in the country park, and whether one could use plastic for those or not. Indeed, in Councillor Ritchie, in raising this matter, he did in fact talk about pocket money or some similar phrase. So I do invite members to raise these matters of strategy. Otherwise, we do have some difficulty in looking at the details of that full council in all the papers. Somebody to that, Chairman. Apologies if it feels a bit of a rant, but there we are. I invite the 3 recommendations to be approved.
Thank you very much. Can I put that to the meeting, please? Any against? That's been recorded. Thank you. The recommendation is carried. The civic offices at Abbey Centre improvements. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. SG 791601 is already approved, so I would like members purely and simply to approve the recommendation, and if I can add SG 811601, probably vote for them at the same time, Chairman, because that was originally exempt, so I'll put them to council for approval.
We'll have to put them one at a time. I know you're conscious of the passage of time, but nevertheless we must deal with the items separately on the agenda, I'm afraid. Do you have a seconder for the Abbey Centre improvement?
Yes.
Yes, you do. Write that down. And anybody want to speak? Do you want to speak?
Not unless anybody, if anybody else does, I reserve my right to speak.
Councillor Randall wants to
Yes,
speak.
thank you, Chairman. I'll just reiterate what I said before, that in the future, when we are collecting rents, we put money aside so that we don't have this again. It's put in a separate budget, so it's always there for ongoing improvements. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you wish to respond? No. Right. Can I put that to the meeting then, the recommendation? Agreed. Thank you. Now we move to the final business under this particular agenda item, and then I'll have an announcement to make. The proposed commercial units at Heartlands Business Park. Can I remind you, unnecessarily perhaps, this was originally an item. There can be no discussion on this unless we clear the room of non-members and non-officers. So I'm asking that the capital programme, you don't have to go until I ask you to. Councillor Paul, you want to propose this?
Chairman, yes, I propose this. I don't feel the need for discussion. I hope somebody would second it, and thank you, Chairman. I'm conscious that we're 4 minutes away from having a break. Thank you.
You should be so lucky. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Hill.
Mr. Chairman, I won't speak, but I certainly support it.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak? Can I put that to the meeting? Thank you. Now, before we go on, we are within a 4 minutes or so of a deadline beyond which we can only proceed if you agree. We haven't finished our agenda. Agreed? Agreed what? Agreed. Carry on.
If we go over, yeah.
We carry on.
Yeah, carry on, sir.
Okay. Schedule of council and committee meetings, page 85 in your papers. Agreed? No. I have a comment to make. I'm allowed to I query an item in this. I note that for some unknown reason, without any explanation, the annual council meeting has been moved, which is very annoying to those who've made arrangements for it to be on the 17th of May. I know that this meeting is not tied to other meetings, so I dare say advantage was trying to be taken of the fact that we don't have any district council elections this coming year, and so we're not tied to the election timetable. However, arrangements have been made for the meeting to be held on the 17th of May, and I see no reason why it should be moved. Any comment? Do I record that as a typographical error? It was meant to say the 17th.
Well, propose it.
If you're happy with that, Chairman, and put it to the meeting, I have no idea why it's changed.
I'm going to say, Chairman, normally the planning meeting always follows the annual council. I guess that's not positive.
No, we need to know the members before we go to planning.
Yes.
So it needs to be the other one. You need to have the council.
Indeed. Well, that would have been, the arrangement would have been that the council was on the 17th and planning is on the 18th.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, Chairman, just to confirm it's fine because the planning committee is shown for the 18th of May.
Yeah, thank you. That's right, but that would help. With that slight alteration, do I have agreement that that is yeah, right where it was. Item 10, food. To note of change to the schedule of meetings, the Corporate Governance Committee meeting that was due to be held on the 11th of April 2017 will now be held on the 12th of April 2017. I guess there was a good reason for that. Does anybody wish to speak on that?
That's my diary, Chair.
We point the finger. Do I have agreement that that is done? Thank you. In declaring the meeting closed,